Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order the meeting of Accommodation ad hoc meeting. I will be letting acknowledgement, followed by some flag and then we acknowledge that Stratford is situated on lands shared between many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples today. As a city, we have a responsibility for the stewardship of the land on which we live and work. Today, we acknowledge Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and the neutral Arawandri peoples, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live, work, and play on this land. Respecting Stratford. The Corporation of the City of Stratford is committed to providing quality service to all members of the public, council, and our employees. Our goal is to promote a safe, healthy, respectful, inclusive, and positive environment. We have the responsibility to treat people with respect by creating safe and respectful spaces. It is the city's expectation that all residents will be respectful. Item 2 is declaration of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Seeing none. Item 3 is adoption of minutes. So we have attached the minutes from the last meeting. Okay. Sorry about that. If anybody would like to use the minutes, I'll ask you, John. Sure. Are there any comments, questions, additions, suggestions? Seeing none, all in favor of approving minutes? Great, thank you. Okay. Yeah, I've got into the internet, so. I have it close to there. Oh, yeah, I'll just read it. Awesome. What happens? So we do not have an agenda or an agenda this time. Item 5 or items for discussion. So we have a draft policy that approval work on updating based on the conversation we had at our last meeting. So just having a look over it, wondering if there are any comments, questions, concerns based on that left. So I did have a question. So we had a couple of committee members weren't here last time. So there are a couple of notable differences between this version and the one that draft we had the last time. One of them is that we changed the scoring somewhat, and this was actually well, we were talking about weighting, but also I like to give round numbers. So Herman was nice enough to accommodate me, and now the score is out of 100, which is great. But also there's some heavier weighting to benefits to the tourism industry. The other part of this policy that's changed is that originally the last draft of it, if you look at the last meeting, had 50% of the city portion of the MAT tax going into a reserve fund and 50% of this program. So this has been updated now to say 100% would be recommended to go into this program. So that's one of the changes. The other one is there's a within the policy. There's a recommendation to have the committee continue and participate in the execution of said policy. So I just wanted to point out there was a couple of differences from the last meeting and see if there's any other thoughts, comments on any of that. Because if not, if we're ready to approve it, then
I should say, I thought we very well done.
Okay, great. All right, so would you like to make a motion?
Sure.
Approve the draft. Okay, great. Any further questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none, all yeah, Nathan.
I guess one comment was just might be helpful to have a little bit of guidance for the reviewers of the scores or the applications. So like what does a 10 mean? What does a G mean? Or whatever the score is. It might be helpful to just have a very short sheet that says, 9 and 10 is it's quantifiable, there's strong assumptions being made, when there's some value for the map. You know, 6 to 8 would be reasonable estimates to moderate evidence, 3, 4, mostly quantitative, weaker assumptions, and then 1 to 2 little evidence. With something. So I think some sort of guidance for the reviewing would be helpful.
Through the chair, so I hear you, and we can vote. We typically don't prescribe it, because if we do prescribe it, we don't really need scores. Right, if it's that restrictive that it becomes down to like exactly that allocation, it comes down to the committee members. There's some element of say professional judgment that comes into it, and then typically what we would do is we would average it and weight the scores anyway, so to eliminate any outliers. But I do hear you, and so that's something we can take back. Probably doesn't necessarily hold up the policy piece, because it can be added on after, but certainly try to determine, you know, what constitutes a high score versus a low score.
Yeah, I mean, it's like something that, you know, whenever I've, you know, interviewed a person for a job, I always have a little bit of a cheat sheet, and so to keep me more objective and subjective in the process. So.
I was just going to suggest that we let the standing committee define what the standards.
Be an area of discussion for the future, yeah.
Yeah.
Or what, as you need to, can kind of roll over things, in theory, that was making that decision, you can sit down at the beginning and say, okay, this is kind of what.
I think in each case, you kind of want to calibrate group, right, before you start funding, you know, numbers, so it's just remind ourselves kind of said. But I think the group shouldn't be whatever group that is.
Okay, so,
sorry, I can't remember, did we in this standing committee or whatever it's gonna be called? Is it in here anywhere where, like, who the makeup of the group is? Because I know we kind of assumed it would be similar to this with a couple of accommodators and sort of a balance of other businesses or residents.
Through the chair, I purposely didn't include it in here because that would be defined under the terms of reference. But I believe, and I maybe will defer to the court, maybe to so that it doesn't cloud the purpose of this call, right? But it would get covered when terms of reference is established. But great. Okay, there are no further questions, and I will call the question on approving this policy. All in favor?
I'm sorry.
Right on question.
Right on page PDF page 6, there's 7 bullet. It's specific items for monitoring. Just before definition. And there's a reference to the map reserve fund, which I thought was being, it's struck out elsewhere. So I just didn't know how that impacted that paragraph.
Through the chair, the mat reserve fund is still required to hold any residual monies or to kind of be the parking lot for the funds. So I did remove it altogether. However, if you've identified any conflicting language, please let me know. But I think it's like the language in the reserve fund policy is pretty broad. And so it doesn't speak to sort of ins and outs and like how specifically how it will get utilized. So the intent would be that this policy govern that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I'm just rereading it with the context that doesn't have it. The way it's written right now, it does sound a little bit like the reserve fund. And in the old sense that we would use like the 50-50 split, but as long as you feel that I'm misreading it, then I'm okay.
Yeah, my understanding is the reserve fund already exists, because that's where the mat funds sit.
Yes, it was
Currently, so it already exists, and then it's how the monies that end up, basically the city portions governed by us.
Good.
Okay, last of all, any questions? Before I call a question. All in favor of approving the policy? Curious. Okay, 5.2, we have the draft recommendation report, so this is the report that is coming from this committee council to talk about. What we did at our time during these meetings and what we recommend moving forward, and basically, the recommendation is to accept this policy. So were there any thoughts? Inputs?
Is that just the very short recommendation at the end, or?
Yes. So it's just for the information of council, basically, this is what we talked about, this is the input that we got from the survey. A little bit of information on that. And then the recommendation, which is basically to adopt.
Can I just make one comment in the, it's the very last paragraph, you filled out the recommendation, just a typo on your name, which never big deal, but, could we add a little bit more about this survey, like people are even handled on previous survey? What I mean, I'm not looking for a paragraph, I'm just looking for the highlights, like 100% alignment. Excellent.
I think that, well, all of that would be included as an attachment. So are you looking for something more than, because we haven't really, I guess we did do a summary of the other. So if we wanted to prepare a summary of the.
Sure.
Like the cabinet.
If we did say that there's two different flavors of survey or different constituent groups, and give a fairly even-handed representation of what the survey said, that's all I'm looking for.
So you'll create a couple sentences that you can put in and we'll correct your name.
That's okay. Man gets it way worse. She gets all the even just all the time.
Okay, are there any other comments, and is the rest of the group okay with the addition? As, because we can approve the policy sort of as with recommended changes. Testing them. Right, so that basically every time we're going to come back for another meeting, so this thing more quickly.
Is it okay if I draft something, send it to Carmen, and you can distribute it however the best way is?
Do we need to, so we wouldn't be distributing it necessarily, but incorporating it within the recommendation, so maybe we need to talk about that here before we do that, so.
Sure.
The nature and content of it, just so that the rest of your committee's on board with it.
What I was imagining doing was putting what you wrote already, whoever wrote already, in one column, and then the analog to mine in the next column. And then you can kind of basically.
Column or presentation presents some accessibility issues when it comes to the agenda, so it's not impossible, but just like probably we can do it in a similar paragraph format. If it can mirror.
I will give you both. You can
Okay,
choose
sounds
both
good.
teams.
Thank you.
Yeah, for accessibility, we have the automatic meters for people with.
Yes. Good. I got that.
It happens, that
I assume there's just gonna be a cut and paste of stuff I send in, if cutting and pasting, and then there's always the accessibility issue.
right, so you'll do a summary of sort of this percent, similar to the summary that we have there, like.
All
This
sorts of
percent.
stuff.
All right, so. I'm just looking to the, so it is, can we then approve this in principle? With John's changes or additions,
So through the chair, certainly, so if you can approve it now, what would happen would be John would send the information to Carmen, that would be consolidating the recommendation work. We are gonna jazz it up a little bit, we just wanted to make sure we got the content and layout done first before we started adding some additional. Some graphics with sparkle and pizzazz, we'll call it. And then once we have that, we'll send it back to the chair just for a final review and approval. And then once it's officially done, we'll send copy to this committee so that you have it. See it before it votes live.
right?
So we need to be 1 week, enough. What?
That's if you can't get it to us, then we're gonna turn this around really quickly.
Okay,
Yeah.
how about soon?
So you can have till tomorrow if you'd like.
6 hours from now.
That's great, thank you. Okay, are there any other comments about the draft recommendations?
I'll just make a comment to say that there's been a lot of really vigorous debate through the process. I thought we ended up with really, at least from the selfish perspective, that we, finessed and finagled, we got everybody, so hopefully here's your feel soon.
I think so. I feel like we did as the recommendation report says, we had a lot of wide ranging in-depth conversations, and it's good to clarify things for all of us really to understand the direction. So I'm happy with it. We've done a good job.
I just want to add too, for this committee's benefit, part of my role in this is to make sure that council has not just what this committee has recommended, but any potential areas for consideration or whatever. So I don't want anybody to be take any offense to that position when I present the staff side of the report. Because council does have some decisions that they can make that maybe it's 100% adoption of this, maybe it's some other things that they need to talk about or consider. So just bear that in mind, and if it, depending on how that conversation goes, we can be having another conversation after the fact. But I didn't want anybody to feel that staff is undermining this process, because that's certainly not the intent.
So how does that work in terms of this point of view, or whatever you call
Well,
recommendations?
From the staff's point of view, it's really just council taking a step back from this report and this policy recommendation, and considering the impact to the city overall of like use of mat revenues, and just sort of generalizing. Because again, the provincial legislation governs it to only to a small degree. This is very prescriptive, this policy, so council could choose to do something anywhere in between. So it kind of, and that's what they've been doing all along, but again, I just want that to be part, so this committee isn't, I don't think there'd be any surprises, to be honest, based on our conversations that we have had.
That's going to be my next question is, do you feel like, I didn't tell them that breaking up, but do you feel like there's any minefield?
I think that the couple of the areas, and this is just based on my, I'm not gonna call it inside knowledge, because council meetings are open to the public, but just comments that have been made in open session around, advisory committees in general. Okay, and they're the place for them within council structure. And then also, just how much control council wants to have within policy decisions, and whether or not they become inside or outside of a policy. So it just comes down to say for example, and I'm not speaking for anybody individually, but if a council member or members of council decided that they wanted to have some of the funds available for tourism related initiatives that aren't necessarily flowing through this policy, that's where I would anticipate a potential conversation. That's all. No, it's not a recommendation from staff or anything like that. It's just that's what I would expect. But you guys will probably all get the council meeting that this comes to, so you'll be able to see it all firsthand.
It doesn't sound like there's any big, you don't feel like there's any big points in staff's recommendation that is meaningfully different than what the policy says.
Staff's recommendation will be that council should consider the impacts of some of the policy structure. So the impacts, for example, of having a standing committee, the impacts of having a policy that prescribes 100% of the funds. It's just more for their general thing. It's not recommending contrary or supporting this policy specifically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
And it will include things like the cost of the committee, not anticipated meetings and what is that cost of statute, that has to be as well. Right? So it sort of rounds out the whole recommendation. Right. Okay. So we've got the draft recommendation report. Would someone like to move it as amended?
Sure.
Thank you. Any further discussion and conversation? All in favor? That's great, that carries, thank you. So that brings us to the end of our packet, I think, for that. And motion to adjourn. All right, all in favor? Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.